Okay, so what happened during the 1927 is also very important. There's a very interesting event happening during the time. During the colonial time, there's a newspaper called the Taiwan Bao, which is the newspaper that give it to the people, especially like Taiwanese people to read. And they held a poll to select the top 8 sites of Taiwan. So the most scenic or like most important site locations. And overall, they are 360 million votes was casted. But remember, at the time, Taiwan only has 3.6 million people. So there are about 100 votes per person. So what happened is because during the time you have to buy the newspaper, and to get the sheets on this top left hand side to be able to cast the vote, and you have to put it in the postcard. And then after that, you voted in, and then the newspaper will start telling you how many votes were casted this month or this week, and which location is number 1, which location is number 2. So it's kind of like a promoting or like a marketing strategy to let the local people are able to continue to cast more votes. So the students, they want their neighborhood site or they want their hometown to be able to be on the top 8 site of Taiwan. They will ask their parents to get more newspaper, or they will ask their neighbors or whoever in their hometown to get more newspaper to cast this kind of vote. So during the time, the overall 360 million votes are on the postcard. And what happened is the newspaper company, they have to rent another warehouse to store all this 360 million votes, which is a lot because it's like 100 times more than the population at that time. And this is also the reason that we know Taiwanese people are crazy about casting votes online, because nowadays we do the same thing as well. Like we will tell our neighbors or the relatives to vote whatever event is going on and whatever you want to support. So overall, there are 20 finalists and with 2 exceptions. And who decided this is that not only this 360 votes, because it's only occupied about 40% of the score. The other 60% of the score are decided by the judge, some important government people and general governors. So overall, there are 20 final sites. 8 of them became the top 8 site of Taiwan, and the other 12, the rest of 12, it's also posted, but not as important. It's also very scenic area. And besides these 2, there are 2 exceptions, so which is beyond the top 8 site because they're untouchable. One is called the area of the god or the deities, which is the Taiwan Shrine. Everybody can visit. And the other one is the Ikatayama, which is the new highest mountain in the Japanese colony. It's Shingaoshan, and currently it's called the Mount Jade. So these 2 exceptions continue to carry it, and these 20 sites continue to carry it as the best of the Taiwan site even nowadays. And it's also very important to our tourist site development. So these top 8 are Baxianshan, Cape Erwanbi, Tarako Gorge, Tamshui, Shoushan, Alishan, Asahi Akoga in Keelung, and Salmon Lake. So which is the top 8, Baxianshan, Erwanbi, top 8, and the top 12. The 12 scenic area are 八卦山、小板山、新竹、北投、太平山、大理桐、大溪、雾社、五头逼、五指山、旗山、石头山 and 碧潭. So this continuous very important sightseeing site throughout nowadays. So let's see what this top 8 site looks like. And we can see from it's a postcard produced during that time by the Chinese calligrapher painting. And this top 8 site, the first one is the Taiwan Shrine. So it's 2 exceptions. The Taiwan Shrine, which is where everybody have to go, and this location right now is no longer exist, but became the Taipei Grand Hotel, the Grand Hotel. The other one is the Nikatayama, which is the tallest mountain in Taiwan. And although Taiwan is a tropical island, but we do get the snow, especially on top of the mountain. So every year when we see the snowing in Nikatayama, which is currently called the Mount Jade, people will start prepared to see the snow, and then they'll get their gear up and will drive to the mountains. The top 8 site, Cape Erwanbi, which is the very southern point of Taiwan, and from there, sometimes people with really good view site, they say they'd be able to see the Lushong Island of Philippines, which I don't think so, because I'm not a good eyesight. And then this lighthouse is also a very important military base to secure the very southern point of Taiwan, and then also the Taiwan Strait and the Pacific Ocean. The Tamshui, which is located in New Taipei City nowadays, in the colonial time, is a very picturesque with a lot of European style house and very famous locations for a lot of painters and the port. So the Tamshui sunset and also the night view brings a lot of people to go visit. And besides that, also from the postcard you can see earlier, there's also a beach house nearby. Alishan, which will continue, is a very important site to the current tourism industry. It's famous for sunrise, sunset, sea of clouds, mountain railroad line, which is one of the earliest mountain railroad, and it's already existing in Taiwan for more than 100 years. This year will be, in 2020, will be about 115 years old. You can see the village where the wood logging industry people's living. This high mountain is called the Tashan, looks like a tower, so that's why we call it Tashan. Shoushan, which is in Kaohsiung, is also closer to the waterfront, and then also closer to see the ocean on one side, and the other side be able to see the Kaohsiung city, and also the river, the Kaohsiung River. So it's very nice view, and with monkeys. Currently, the Formosa market is very active there. So right nowadays, we call it Monkey Mountain. It's a nickname. The other 4 are Torako Gorge. Torako Gorge is also continue as one of the top sites of tourist destinations in Taiwan, selected even nowadays by the Westerners. So it's a gorge cut through the marbles, mountains with cliffs and suspension bridges, and very nice indigenous people, indigenous culture. The other one is the Baxianshan. It's also another wood logging area with very beautiful waterfalls and the giant trees and the mountain in the surrounding. It's closer to the Taichung city. And Asahi Koga in Keelung. Recently, we don't have the location anymore. That people know this location nowadays is like one part of the hills that closer to the Keelung port, and then from the Asahi Koga, you'll be able to see the cargo boat going to the Keelung port, which is the largest port at the time, and then also some of the fishermen's village, and then also the fishing ship, shipping in and out. So sometimes they will lit up with the light. So during the day and night, it's very nice. And Asahi means the sunrise. So it's also people can go there to see the sunrise. And then final but not least is the Summer Lake. It's also another super famous sightseeing locations even nowadays. So it is the largest lake in Taiwan of the freshwater, high in the mountain, about 7 meters above sea level. It was constructed, semi-constructed by the Japanese, because in the past this is a smaller pond and some small lake, but the Japanese built a dam for the hydraulic power and continue to establish as a sightseeing site. So people will go there, enjoy the Aborigines exotic culture, to see the sunrise, sunset in mountains, to be able to take the boat ride along the lake, and then also going hiking within the area. So this top 8 site, the Japanese general governor, the railway department started to establish the pamphlet to tell people where, if you want to go to this area, which site you can go, which train station you can be off to be able to access to this location. So at that time, the tour company are very smart. They start to arrange a different itineraries to visit the site. So for example, a day trip, if you're in Taipei, what you can do in the day, you can go to Tangshui, you can go to Keelung, and then if you're in the middle part of Taiwan, you can visit Baxianshan or Samu Lake, and then down south, you go either Alishan for more than a day, taking the train, or go to Shoushan in Kaohsiung, Chaozhou, the Garambi. On the east coast, you have the Torako Gorge. So the tour company able to arrange for like 7-day trip, 4-day trip, a day trip, or even longer, just like nowadays, if you want to go around Taiwan. So this is like very important foundations for all the Taiwan tourism industry. And the other things also very, very important to boost the tourism is the Taiwan Expo. So this Taiwan Expo hosted in 1935 by the Japanese government. And then the day is actually very interesting. The starting day is the Double Tenth Day in Showa 10. But the Double Tenth Day nowadays in Taiwan, which is also the national holiday for the Republic of China. It's the birthday of the Republic of China. And so during the colonial time, it wasn't part of Republic of China, it's Japanese. So they actually try to commemorate the first 40 years of the colonial rule. So they want to enhance the power, they want to demonstrate what they did in Taiwan. They want to demonstrate business, economy, and also infrastructure, even the people, because this is like the first colony that's successful to let people adapt the Japanese culture, become the imperial colony. During these 50 days, there are 3.1 million visitors in total, and overall, because they're separate in several different sites, the major location is Taipei, so there are 2.7 million visited Taipei site, and 95% are domestic visitors, 5% are from Japan, Korea, or Manchuria, which is the mainland China, where the Japanese colonies are located. So this is very interesting because at that time there are only 6 million people in residents in Taiwan. So 3.1 million visitors, which is half of the Taiwanese population, visit this expo. So you can see from this map, this is the main site of the Taiwan Expo. So there are several different locations in Taipei City. And then they even have the areas outside of Taipei, of the Grass Mountain, of the Taiwan Shrine. And because of that, they built so many different infrastructures. And these infrastructures remained to nowadays. So nowadays, we are able to see some of the infrastructures specifically built for this Taiwan Expo in this 40 years. So they do have about industry, like sugar industry, the salt industry, the wood logging industry, and even the culture for the performance of the Aborigines people, the performance of culture dance, even incorporate with the temple festival, which is continue on from the Qing dynasty to Japanese colonial time. And then also they have some site further down south in Kaohsiung for the Kaohsiung port, and also in Hsinchu and Taichung. So in general, this boosts like all around Taiwan tourism. And then this is one of the promotional documentary. It was documented at the time about 1937 in the Taipei city, and we're going to see this video.
This video is filmed during the colonial time in the 1930s to demonstrate the infrastructure and the buildings built under the Japanese government. The car drove across the Tamsui River to enter Taipei City. This bridge is called Taipei Bridge at the time. There used to be walls around the city center during the Qing dynasty, but the Japanese took it down, all of them. Only left 4 gates: East, South, Little South, and North Gate. Meanwhile, they converted the original wall locations into 3-lane street with 3 roads to achieve the modern city planning. Within the perimeter of these gates were the city center, and Governor General's office is the tallest building. Majority of the residents who lived in the city center were Japanese. South of the Governor General's office were government official buildings and schools. This was the Taipei City Hall. Currently is the supervisory house. The person who came out to greet was the Taipei City Governor at the time. And then the song in the background is called the Taipei Anthem. This military command headquarters building, unfortunately, was bombed in the 1945. This Monopoly Bureau building currently is the Taiwan Tobacco Liquor Company. The Central Research Institute was also bombed in the 1945. The Taipei City Hospital now is the National Taiwan University Hospital. This is the Department of the Railroad. The building of Communication Bureau now is Academia Historica. Across the street from that was the Taiwan Power Company headquarters, but bombed in 1945. And finally, here was the Governor General's house during the colonial time, later converted into the Taipei Guest House. This place now open once a month to allow the public to visit.
After the video that you can see, this is the document published in 1937 from the Taiwan Railroad Journal to promote, to see the promotions and the revenue generated during the time. So the Japanese Travel Club, Taiwan Branch, which is the tour company, official travel company during the colonial time, they start to having the numbers. So you can see 1936, which is Taiwanese number. This is a Chinese character, 1936. So 1936, for the pilgrimage, just like I mentioned, the pilgrimage tour, they have total 124 group, and then 25,000 people to participate, and then generate more than $98,000 at the time. And then for the beach park tour, they have total 36. And then the third one is called the Naliang, which is during the summertime people go to visit the mountains or the hot spring and then get cool off. And then also the other ones all around Taiwan is about 35. And then for the sightseeing, the city tour or like industrial visit, more like excursions or like a field trip, there are 242 cases. But overall, you can see which one generate the most money is actually the pilgrimage, because they spend money, they buy the souvenirs, they will do the donations, they have to buy food, they have multiple days, so they actually make more money than that. So this is a 1937 published in May of the Taiwan Railroad Journal. And then the other one indicates the increasing of the tour club. So 1935, overall they have those private tour club from Japan or from Taiwan is more like a private one that you have to be the member of the tour club to be able to participate in the tour. So overall, in 1935, it's 162 people. 162 cases, and then the overall is about 17,481 member. But then in 1936, there are 443 cases, and then the overall members increased to 45,374, and then also make double the money. As you can see, it's very important to have the Taiwan Expo and start to boost this tour business. So by 1935, there are more than 300 lodging facilities and more than 443 overall in the 1936 of the tour company club, club member. What happened after 1947? So unfortunately, Japan, because they have superpower, they think they have superpower, they want to take over the Asia. So after 1937, 1938, they broke the wars. They started fighting against the Russians. They started fighting against the Manchus, started to fight against China, and then the Pacific War started, and then the World War II started. So Japanese government started to limit the amount of people allowed to travel. They start to limiting the resources, and then also even at the end of the war, around 1942 to 1945, you need to have a permission to travel. And then some of the railroad, they start to derail it to use the iron to cast the bombs and other military-related items. So at the peak of the 1936, 1937, the tour industry started to decline. So this marks the end of the Japanese colonization era and also the Japanese tourism industry. Then after that, 1945, the mainland Chinese started moving, and we'll start a different chapter afterwards. So we're going to take about 20 minutes break, and we'll come back later. So now we're back, and this is a new era of the Taiwan tourism industry. And what happened is after 1945, Taiwan started to taking over by the nationalists, which is known as Republic of China, and nowadays the ROC government, or Taiwan. So from 1945 to 1949, there are actually many instances because we're in the transition between Taiwan, Japan. So during the time, there are some rebellions and also some misunderstanding. Also during the World War II, Taiwan was bombed because we're part of Japan. So there are many places that got bombed by the Union Army, by the Americans, the air raid. So there's many things that need to be repaired. So actually from 1945 to 1953, there's not too many tourism sort of like activities going on because people either have to try to escape from the martial law because we started establishing martial law in 1949, and also they try to have the political issues. So not until 1953, the new Taiwan Top 8 site was assigned by the government, and then until 1956, that's the first time the Taiwan Provincial Tourism Committee was established. So this is like the first official committee established after 1945. And during that time, they set up some of the very important sites that are able to let people after the war be able to go to see the scenery, have some kind of recreational time. So these three is actually continued by the Japanese colonial top 8 or the top 20 famous site and became the new sightseeing location. So the first one is called the Mountain Aqua Scenic area. We are now known as the Aqua Shrine. And then they can see they start to building this gigantic bronze Buddha, and people can go inside the Buddha. So this was built in 1955. And then the other one is the Bitan Scenic area, which has also appeared during the colonial time of one of the top 12 scenic sites. People go there to see the Bitan suspension bridge, and they can row the boat, enjoy. Bitan is not too far away from Taipei. It's located in New Taipei City, and currently, if you come to Taiwan, there's a MRT station nearby to visit the location. The other one is the Mount Hehuan, the Hehuan Mountain Forest Recreation Area, established in 1964. But before that, people start going to Mount Hehuan for like ski training and also to see the mountains. This is also like the easier mountain that we'd be able to see the snow. So from 1945 to 1956, it's not too much going on, but start to get established those tourism industry.